Welcome, everyone. So today we are diving into what is, honestly, the greatest corporate turnaround and probably one of the most epic personal comeback stories in business history. We're looking at the incredible life, the massive fall, and the absolutely monumental return of Steve Jobs in this explainer. Let's get right into it. Just imagine this for a second. What if you built a revolutionary company from scratch and then you were fired from it? It sounds like a crazy Hollywood script, right? But for Steve Jobs, the stakes were incredibly real. This is a story about devastating failure, sure, but more importantly, it's about unprecedented triumph.
All right, Section 1, the beginning and the fall.
We really have to understand where he started to appreciate just how far he fell and ultimately how high he climbed. Okay, so in 1976, Jobs and his buddy Steve Wozniak found Apple in a tiny garage. What started as just a simple dream quickly blew up into a revolutionary company. The Apple II computer was an absolute smash hit, making Jobs a millionaire while he was still super young. But that skyrocketing success, it crashed hard. Just 9 years later, in 1985, he made a shocking exit which set the stage for his epic return much later in 1997. So what actually happened in 1985? Well, after some early product flops and some really intense disagreements, we're talking a massive power struggle with the board and then CEO John Sculley, Steve Jobs was forced out of the very company he created. At that exact moment, pretty much everyone thought his career was completely toast. He'd lost literally everything he had worked for.
Which brings us to Section 2, the exile years.
But as we all know, that wasn't the end of the story. This was his time in the wilderness, and instead of giving up, Jobs absolutely refused to quit. He used this time to hone his leadership skills. He took some very concrete steps forward. Step 1, he founded a brand new company called Next Computers to build advanced operating systems. Step 2, he invested in this relatively unknown animation studio called Pixar. And you know how that turned out? Years later, Pixar created the massive blockbuster Toy Story and changed animation forever. And step 3, maybe the most important, he actually learned from his early failures. He refined his vision. He polished his charismatic style. He really proved that massive setbacks can actually be the catalyst for incredible growth. Section 3, 90 Days to Save Apple.
Now, meanwhile, back at Apple, things were completely falling apart. We're talking cinematic levels of tension here. By 1997, Apple was in a full-blown crisis. In a stunning, desperate move, they bought Next Software for $400 million, bringing Steve Jobs back to a company that was, frankly, on life support. The crucial number you need to grasp here is $1.5 billion. $1.5 billion. That is the jaw-dropping amount of money Apple was bleeding in losses over just a 500-day period. They were officially 90 days away from going completely bankrupt. Absolute doom and gloom.
To put that disaster into perspective, in just a single quarter, the company lost $78 million. Their stock price had tanked to an all-time low of $3.19, and their market share, it plummeted from 12% all the way down to a measly 4%. It was so bad that competitors were literally laughing them off the stage. When Michael Dell, the CEO of Dell Computers, was asked what he would do if he were running Apple, he flat out said, "I'd shut it down and give the money back to the shareholders." Ouch. But you know what? For Steve Jobs, that very public, very brutal dismissal just added fuel to the fire. It cemented his ruthless determination to save the brand he loved. And man, did he move fast. Initially acting as an advisor and then stepping up as interim CEO, Jobs operated at lightning speed. By August of 1997, he convinced the old, failing board to resign and brought in his own team. He immediately scrapped the terrible strategy of licensing Apple software to clone makers. And then, the ultimate shocker. He secured a $150 million cash lifeline from his biggest rival, Bill Gates and Microsoft. He took total, decisive control.
Moving on to Section 4, Think Different, Marketing Genius.
See, saving the company wasn't just about slashing budgets and signing corporate deals. He had to revive the very soul of the brand. Jobs shifted the focus from pure, desperate survival to completely redefining Apple's identity. He launched what is arguably one of the most iconic advertising campaigns in history. You've probably heard the words, "Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently." This 1997 campaign didn't even feature a computer, not one. Instead, it honored innovators and absolute geniuses like Einstein and Martin Luther King Jr., people who broke the rules to push the human race forward.
Look at the contrast here. It's brilliant. Traditional marketing, what everyone else was doing, was obsessing over product specs, megabytes, processors, and features. But Jobs' strategy? Totally different ballgame. He understood that in a complicated, super noisy world, you don't win by selling computer chips. You sell values. It's exactly like how Nike doesn't try to sell you on the rubber soles of their shoes. They honor great athletes. Apple decided to honor the people crazy enough to think they can change the world.
All right, Section 5. The Golden Era of Innovation.
So, with the brand's soul reignited, Jobs turned his laser focus back to the actual products. Legend has it, he sat down with the incredible designer Jony Ive, and they looked at the massive mess of dozens of confusing, overlapping Apple products. Jobs literally walked up to a whiteboard and drew a simple 2x2 grid. He killed off all the junk and declared Apple would focus on just 4 amazing things: a consumer desktop, a consumer portable, a pro desktop, and a pro portable. Boom! That was it. Ultimate ruthless focus.
And that intense focus gave birth to Magic. In 1998, the colorful iMac launched, and it completely changed the game. It was specifically designed so you could just plug it in and get right on the internet out of the box. And it wasn't some boring, beige corporate machine. It came in these bright colors and even had this quirky little handle on the back, just to make technology feel friendly and approachable.
Check out the massive financial swing this created. Before Jobs came back, Apple was losing $78 million a quarter. But in less than a year of his return, thanks to that strict focus, he flipped those record losses into a $44 million quarterly profit. That is a billion-dollar swing, orchestrated by one guy in just a matter of months. Unbelievable.
And from there, it was just one legendary home run after another. He launched the iPod, then the iPhone, and the iPad, completely shattering the music and mobile phone industries. He totally rethought retail by inventing the Apple Store experience. Working closely with Tim Cook, he built this insanely strong culture of operational excellence. The end result? Apple's market cap grew 700 times over, building the foundation for the nearly $4 trillion juggernaut it is today.
Finally, Section 6, Turning Failure into Success.
So we've walked through the history, but what does all of this actually mean for us? Well, this whole corporate journey connects deeply to our own lives and our personal struggles. Steve Jobs famously said, "Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life." And that right there is his ultimate leadership lesson. It's all about extreme resilience. It's about ignoring the critics who write you off and taking your absolute lowest moments, like getting fired from the very company you created, and using that exact pain as the fuel for your greatest comeback.
His story is the ultimate proof that failure is rarely the end. It's almost always the beginning of something so much bigger. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one thought. When you look at what Jobs achieved after losing literally everything, what is the one dream you refuse to give up on? Keep pushing forward, embrace your failures, and go change your world. Thanks for hanging out with me today.